I've mentioned this several times, but we can't overlook the value of learning to count. And it seems so elementary, something you might learn to do when you're 3, 4, 5 years old and you master. But the reality is, it's something you will continue to work on for many years in the elementary years if you're so lucky to have that opportunity in the class. And here's an example of some things you can learn to count by. I'll try to provide several others. And the way that we start to count is we start learning to count by ones, and this is the most basic thing. When we learn what it sounds like: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A kid that's learning still might do something like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, 10. They might skip. They might not really know it yet, and so it takes time to master that. Once they've mastered that, though, by no means have they learned to count in all the ways that they can. If they learn to count by twos, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, count by threes, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, count by fours, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, and so on. They need to be fluent in as many of these as they can. Certainly all the way up through 10 is very helpful. And we think of those as knowing your times tables. One of the most troubling ones on this list, of course, is the sevens. Some of you might even have a little pause there as you count by sevens: 7, 14, 21, 28, and so on. And that just means you need more practice and familiarity with how it sounds, and there might be some activities you can do to build that. If a student masters those, they can continue on to count by 11s. That's a fun one: 11, 22, 33, 44, and so on. Counting by 12s is common in our society because many things come in 12s. And once you've mastered that, you can move on to bigger things like counting by 20. You've seen me do that in some previous videos: 20, 40, 60, 80. And that's really just taking my skill of learning to count by twos and doing it in the tens place. Counting by 50s is handy: 50, 100, 150, 200, and so on. Certainly counting by 100s and 200s. And so these are all skills that can be built. And certainly once you have that, you need to know not only how to go forwards, but how to go backwards, how to count down by fives, how to count down by 100s, and so on. If a student were to progress into middle school, they might learn how to count using fractions, which we will do later on in this class. But if you were to count by 1/2, for example, 1/2, 1, 1 and 1/2, 2, 2 and 1/2, and so on, there would be a whole counting sequence there going up and down by halves. So, if you're good at any one of these, you might feel natural at it to the point where you're like, well, everybody knows how to do that. If you're bad at one of those, you might think, well, that's really hard and impossible. But the reality is you can strengthen any one of these if you're willing to work on it. To illustrate this, I'm going to show you how hard it can be by counting in a different base. So for example, if I had you count by 2, that seems fairly straightforward. But if I were to add a new challenge, I might say, okay, try to do it in base 5. Okay, it starts off pretty simple. It sounds something like this: 2, 4. But now we're totally stuck. 2, 4, 6 doesn't work. There's only the digits 0 through 4 in base 5. So there's not even a digit 5 or 6. So then you'd have to figure out what happens when I actually have this many. Now I'm hesitating to call it 6 because we don't have a 6 in base 5. So how many is this? Well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 0, 1, 1. So the next number would be 1, 1, 1, 3, 2, 0, 2, 2, 2, 4, 3, 1, 3, 3, and so on. You might look at that and think, I could never learn that. The reality is you could. There's a pattern there and you can discover it. And that's just exactly what it's like to learn to count in the elementary years. It takes lots of work and lots of time and lots of counting opportunities to learn all of the many different patterns that exist within our number system. It's very beautiful, and we must spend much time learning those patterns. I hope you take this to heart, and if you teach those elementary years, anywhere from kindergarten through 7th grade, and that really extends into middle school, that you'll spend plenty of time counting.